You have multiple names.
I've got multiple names.
You've got multiple names.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify.
Yeah, okay.
Which one is it? Is it Charbel?
Yeah,
Is it Bobby,
okay.
as we know you? Or
Yeah.
is it Barbie? All right, because you're known with all these three names.
Yeah,
So you need to clarify
yeah.
which name that we're supposed to be calling you. Bobby,
What are you doing here, mate?
mate.
Welcome back.
I've come to have a cup of coffee with you, Bob.
Always, I love coffee, mate. I love it. Hey, you know what? It got to that time of the day, and I was like, even though you have one in the morning, it comes to that time of the day, I was like, I need my second hit, man. I need my second hit. So it was
Well, we're getting it now.
good to see you, Pete.
Hey, listen, last time when we were speaking, I have to ask you the first question,
Yeah,
okay? Because we have to clarify a few points for anyone that does hear this.
yeah.
You have multiple names.
I've got
okay?
multiple names.
You've got
yeah.
multiple names.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify.
Yeah, okay.
Which one is it? Is it Charbel?
Yeah,
Is it Bobby,
okay.
as we know you? Or
Yeah.
is it Barbie? All right, because you're known with all these three names.
Yeah,
So you need to clarify
yeah.
which name that we're supposed to be calling you.
Okay, there's more than three names, just so you know that, but it's all the above. All those names are my names. But my written name, my birth name is Charbel. So
Yes.
I'm Charbel, written name on my license. Where the name Bobby came from, it's originally from Barbie. It wasn't even Bobby. When I tell people Barbie, they laugh their heads off. But where that come from is when I was 5 years old, my auntie, she used to look after us. My parents came from overseas and they used to clean, used to be cleaners. And my auntie used to look after us. And so she used to like, Ghanishdi, like it was like a cute name when I was little. She used to call me Barbie from some daytime show she used to watch, some American show. And one of the guys on there, his name was Barbie. And that's
Barbie.
how the name came across to me. So my name's Charbel. She started this nickname Barbie. And so since I was 5, I've grown up with these two names. And so Barbie, over time, has split into Bobby and Bob. That's where it came from. And Charbel also, when I was early on in my days in the trade industry, Charbel has bridged into Charlie. So people know me as Charlie. They don't know me as anything else. People know me as Charbel. And there's Barbie and there's Bobby and Bob.
I prefer Barbie.
Mate, but
Why? Because I heard your father calling you Barbie. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that's the name that you're going to adopt.
Mate, my family, still to now, my cousins know me as Cousin Barb. So that's a little bit of background. So you know,
I love it.
yeah, so
I
that's
love
all.
it.
Yeah.
Barbie. Okay, what are we discussing today, Barbie?
Peter, I just you came to me on the phone, or you talked to me, and you told me I've got a book for you. And I remember you saying you got a book for me, and I'm like, book? I hate reading books, man. What are you going to give me a book for? I mean, years ago, I used to read the paragraphs underneath pictures, man. I don't read books. But as I grew over time, I grew to respect and value books a lot. And when you said that there's a book about teaching, I thought, okay, I'm cool with that. You know, given my work, I'm interested in that. And then you've given me this book. It says Teaching to Change Lives, and I've just learned to absorb so much. And I've read parts of it, and we're going to talk about today just the introduction about this guy and about chapter 1. But
I'll tell you how I came across this book.
why did you want to pass out the books like?
Right.
What was your reasoning to give out the books to me and to everyone else?
Well, I wanted to do something differently this year because we run the children's ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the year, I'm in the habit of getting everyone a gift. And
Gotcha.
usually what you do, you just give them a gift, maybe some chocolates or
Sure.
what have you. And I thought, you know what, this year I want to do something different. And I came across Ray, and Ray mentioned there's this great book, teaching book, and I thought, you know what, let me speak to our bookshop if we can get these in, and these were shipped in.
Gotcha.
I think it's more beneficial that we kind of equip teachers with resources that will help them become better people, better teachers, and so forth. And what this book will do is probably recalibrate the way you do teach.
Yeah, gotcha.
When I started reading it, I thought, you know what? Valuable information, and it's helping me kind of fine-tune some of the ways I teach.
Gotcha.
Because when I started off, Well, basically, I wasn't the teacher that I needed to be, and so I suppose it's taken me maybe a decade now to understand how to kind of be appealing to the students,
Gotcha.
how to recognise them, and we'll go in depth a bit
Yeah.
today to identify their needs and the way that you kind of got to get into their world
Gotcha.
to capture the way they think
Yeah.
and the way they absorb information. Now, people kind of, the problem that I have with people in ministry, and look, we're pretty good in our Sunday school ministry, but
Yeah.
the biggest problem that you can face is when you love the ministry that much,
Yeah.
you kind of miss the target with the students. So you could love the ministry, you could love teaching, but guess what? You don't have that connection with the teacher, with the students.
Gotcha.
What purpose is that?
I gotcha. You gotta think about what is the reason that you're there for. You know, it's
Yeah, exactly.
is it self-satisfying? And I hope it is self-satisfying. But we want it. You know, anybody that imparts information across the children or educates children, we want them to have that as their priority. We're here to develop and educate these kids, impart some information of knowledge so they can grow in this aspect of the knowledge of the Lord and what that means for them, what Christ has done for them. So I think there's some value in that. You know, I guess as a teacher, you just got to ask yourself the reason why. What am I doing here? I'm here to develop and impart knowledge onto these children. You know, and they say that, you know, you're not a teacher unless you've educated or imparted knowledge onto a child. And more importantly, have they retained it? Just if they've heard it is one thing, but our job as educators is they should be able to retain that information. Then we've done our job in educating them. If they don't retain it, what have we done?
So what's the purpose of having a gift if they're not receiving it?
What do you mean?
Okay, so you got a gift of teaching, right?
Yep.
And you're exercising your gift.
Yep.
So if you're putting it out there and you prepared your lesson and you're delivering it, now if the student is not receiving the information, what's the purpose?
There's no benefit to that. Yeah.
So,
you're just running through a process.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's kind of a middle grounds that we need to identify. What do we need to do to reach the students? Because again, we don't want to fall into that scenario where you're good at what you do,
Gotcha.
you love the ministry,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't love the child, you don't love the children.
Sure.
That's a problem.
Sure, I get it.
And this is the whole purpose of giving this book,
Yeah.
because it kind of fine tunes you in certain aspects to kind of, you got to learn how to get into the mind of a child.
Gotcha.
So what can we implement in our teaching practices that will help us or enable us to do that? And that's what I want to talk
Excellent, man.
about today.
Listen, can I, I started reading it and I just want to go through the introduction if I can, and then I'll just read a bit of the information I've taken from the introduction that I thought there was some nuggets in there that was really helpful that I found some valuable. So I've written down and I've just
I
taken
can
some.
see you've highlighted, and
Yeah.
that's what I've kind of told all the teachers.
I mean, that's
that
what
we
you've
send out.
told me.
Yes.
I've only highlighted because you're the one that says to make sure you highlight the books.
Yes.
And I'm reading through and I'm highlighting, and then when I flick back, I'm like, these things pop out at me, what I've highlighted. So thanks, Peter. I'm not a big reader, man, but if I like something,
I don't think this is a big read.
no. But for me, it's a big read. But I get what you're saying. It's tiny, and there's value in it, man. There's
It
value.
might take us 6 months for guys like you and me, but it's okay.
I love it. How's the coffee going?
Mate, it's taken its time.
I love it. All right. So in this book, there's 7 laws for a teacher.
What's the title of it actually?
Teaching to change lives.
Teaching to change
I
lives.
love that. So
the author?
seven. What's this? Dr. Howard Hendricks.
Dr. Howard Hendricks.
Yeah. 7 proven ways to make your teaching come alive. And look, I think there's some value in it. So in the introduction, the introduction is a passion to communicate. What does that mean? Like, ideally, like if we're upfront teacher, we need to have a passion to communicate. If we can't communicate to the students, then everything else gets negated after that.
Let's elaborate on that. A passion to communicate. To me, if you want to be able to communicate something you love,
Yeah,
you got to be in love with the word.
yeah. I love you, Peter, because as we get onto chapter 1, it talks about that. It talks
Yeah,
about.
I've forgotten everything that I've read, by the way, in chapter 1,
Yeah.
because I haven't had a chance to recap.
I'm here, man. I'm here.
Right.
Only that stands out to me, like, and it says, and we'll read it. It says, you know, you can only impart what is flowing through you. You know what I mean? You cannot impart what you haven't got. So you get right first with the word, and so that it flows through you. But let me go on the introduction, okay?
Go.
Passion to communicate. So a story is told. A guy by the name of Walt in the introduction here only had a 6th grade education and was led to start a Sunday school in his church. And that writer in this book attended as a little boy. So the writer of this book attended this guy Walt's Sunday school, okay, as he was a little boy. The first time this writer, Hendricks, met Walt, his Sunday school teacher, at Sunday school, Walt asked him if he would play marbles.
Oh, yeah, I remember the story. Yep.
The first time he met him, it's not sit down, do you want to play marbles? So they played a game of marbles. He had been beaten. So he played a game of marbles, but his teacher beat him in every single game of marbles. Okay, but what happened there? That Walt made a genuine connection with the writer. The writer said that he would follow him at any point. So in short, it could have been a game of marbles, but what happened was more than a game of marbles. It was a connection that he made. It was a connection. So in order for us to be able to influence kids from what he's saying, we first need to have a connection with them.
Can I share something with you on that thought before you go any further? And I don't want you to lose your place.
Yeah.
Solomon Islands, a few years ago,
Yeah.
we went to distribute Bibles to all these schools. I can't remember how many, thousands upon thousands.
Was it a missions trip or?
Missions trip.
Okay.
But what we did, we went into the jungle and we'd enter these schools and we'd hand over Bibles. Now, a lot of them couldn't afford Bibles, but they were well-dressed students. They took their education very seriously. But there was one particular school that we entered in the jungle, and it was quite a large school.
Yeah.
And if you could just imagine a massive overhead structure, right? And we walked in and we were about to deliver the message, but I wanted to win the hearts of the students because they were all staring at us, sitting at their tables and just looking at you. And
But one second. They were staring and looking at you. So
because we're different.
Sure. So all kids sit and stare. But what happened? Why did you say I want to win their hearts?
Okay.
Did you find a disconnect?
There was a disconnection because the way they're looking at you, you're foreign and everything else. So I just want to try and get in there. So I picked the biggest and the baddest and the meanest table that these older students, these older students were sitting at. And I thought for me to capture most of the people, it's the older students. If I win them first, the rest will follow, right?
Sure.
So as I was
they will lead the rest.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So as I was walking around, I noticed this one particular table and they were all looking at me like this. Pretty tough.
Gotcha.
So I walked up to them and I had a stern look. I mean, I walked around the table and I was eyeballing them and I said, "Who's strong on this table?" And they looked at me like that. They were quite taken back. And I said, "Who's strong?"
Yeah, okay.
And they pointed to this one student.
Okay.
And I went up to this one student and I said to him, "You strong, huh?" And he goes, flicks his head back,
Yeah.
with that type of gesture.
That's how they communicate.
Yeah, that's how they communicate. I said, "All right." So where he was sitting, I went to the opposite side and I said to the boys sitting opposite side him, and I said to them, I said, "Boys, move away." They looked at me like that.
Yeah.
So I said, "Move away."
Yeah.
Clear the seat. And they did. They're looking at me, but they got up and moved. So I sat right before him. And I stuck out my arm like this. "Let's go. Let's see who's strong."
For an arm wrestle?
For an arm wrestle.
Gotcha.
At this stage, all his friends laughed.
Okay.
And they were pointing at him.
Yeah.
All right? So, I'd broken him just that little bit.
Gotcha.
And I said to him, "Come on, hold my hand. Let's go for it."
Yeah.
So he held my hand. At this stage, I can see that tough exterior.
Gotcha.
It made him a bit more humble,
Okay.
and he was a bit paranoid about what I was going to do to him,
Okay.
because if I beat him, his reputation amongst his friends has just
Okay.
gone south, right? So I held him up. Now, obviously, I apply a technique,
Yeah.
okay, which he's not going to be familiar with, but it's my entry to
Yeah.
get into these boys.
Yeah.
So I said to one of the boys, okay, you say go. And so I held his hand and he goes, go. And as he was pushing, I just held him up here and I'm looking at the boys, the rest of the boys, and I was saying to them, I thought you told me he's strong.
Yeah.
After a while, I just put his hand right down to
Yeah.
the table
Yeah.
and they just all burst out laughing.
Excellent.
So at this stage, I put a smile on my face. I gave him a pat on the shoulder.
Gotcha.
But what happened?
You injected yourself into their level of lives. Yeah.
They accepted me, right?
Yeah.
They accepted me.
There's so much value in that.
Yeah.
But would you have done the same thing with 6-year-old girls? Or you would have obviously would you have a different approach?
I would have had a different
Yeah.
approach, obviously, and we'll talk about Sunday school, how
Yeah.
we apply that. But the
Yeah.
point is, once I won their hearts
Gotcha.
and I had their respect,
Gotcha.
I was able to open up my Bible
Gotcha.
and give them the word.
Gotcha, man.
Because if I didn't do that,
Yeah.
and I sat before them,
That's
they're going to
clever,
see me
man.
as a normal white person that's coming in
Yeah.
just to tell them about the scriptures.
Gotcha.
But I had them,
Mm-hmm.
and they were looking at me differently,
Mm-hmm.
and they accepted what I had to say, and then I was able to get up and preach, and it was just a great time.
Good.
And I think that's what he's saying in this book, and I'm going
Yeah.
to let you continue with that marble story,
Yeah.
because once you deliver it, you'll see he applied the same tactic
Yeah.
to win him across. And this is where we as Sunday school teachers or teachers in any facet of preaching the word,
Yeah.
we've got to learn, even if we're a great speaker or a great orator, we need to be able to capture and be more in tune. But anyway, you go.
No.
Has this,
I think it has.
can you smell that?
I love it, Pete, man. I've had one this morning, but you know what? I was just waiting. I was hanging to have another one now.
We'll pass the cups and the sugar and let's
Yeah.
boil that up. Anyway, you continue.
But what was gonna say? It was you know, when this guy was playing marbles and you do that arm wrestle, ultimately, you know, you're making that connection, and it's just that why? Because you want to have influence over them. You know what they say? You know peer pressure, right? You can only have peer pressure. You know, your peers have influence over you because they've got a bonded relationship with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, in order for me to have a relationship, an influence over somebody, I've got to build a relationship.
Yep.
I can't have influence over somebody that is meaningful if I don't have a relationship with them.
That's true.
And I think, you know, with what you've done, there's some value in it. Like I do little things like, and you've seen me, like I'll walk around and I'll ask kids something personal to them, like in a sense, like what did you have for breakfast? Not personal, but things that are happening in their world. And that, you know, what did you have for breakfast, for example?
Well, can I share what
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
done in the past?
Yeah. I'll tell you why I do that.
Yeah, well, the one thing I kind of admired, like even with my kids,
Yeah. Did you put me
Was-
sugar in that?
no, did you want?
Yeah, put me sugar.
Okay, was that I always found it odd that when you'd be around my children, my youngest one, you'd always come up and say, what did you have for breakfast? And I
Yeah.
thought, that's a really weird question
Gotcha.
to be asking a child.
Yeah.
But what I noticed after that, only one,
Yeah, one.
what I noticed after that, and it made sense, is that you were engaging the child.
Yeah.
And then when they would turn around and say, well, I had cereal, you'd go, no way, I had cereal too.
Gotcha.
And you had them, and I
Yeah.
saw the way that even my kids would then formulate a conversation with you, and I thought that was very
Yeah.
smart.
That was. It's really simple because I just want to, you want a child to feel that I care about you. You're just not a number or just another, like a blank face to me. Actually, your life I value. I care about your world and what's happening in there. You know, and that builds trust. That builds trust. And when you build trust, then you'll be able to communicate in whatever facet that you want, to be able to have influence over their lives. So, you know, their ears open up to what you have to say. And you build a bond, and there's many different ways, but, you know, these are the simple ways that...
Continue that story, you know, because I like that story.
Yeah.
It's kind of bringing back memories.
Mate, it's great. So, you know, these are just the before, there's no teaching has taken place now. Or before any teaching can happen, we've got to connect. Like, otherwise we're just standing at the front and we're like policemen, you know what I mean? Do this and do that, and haven't you... We don't want to be policemen. We want to be educators that have influence over some child's lives. And it all starts a relationship, in my opinion, and what this guy is saying. So I'll keep reading. So he had been beaten all the games of marbles, but what happened there was Walt made a genuine connection. And the writer said that he would follow him at any point. Okay, he impacted this boy's life because he cared. His teaching was personal. He mentioned that he couldn't remember much about what he had said, the teacher, but his impact was great and personal and real. So it says here, people will forget about what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. What your words, I might forget those words, but I always will remember how you made me feel. And that's the most, that there's some value in that. So, and if I'm a teacher, I just got to think about that before I can educate or I can just impart any information. I have to have a genuine connection. The kids have to feel like I value and care about them. Otherwise, they're going to disconnect straight away.
Okay, so in other words, it brings me back to that point, what did you have for breakfast? The one thing I learned, you got to connect with them at their level.
Gotcha, of course.
At their level. Another instance when I was in the Philippines, we were teaching 2 to 3 classes at a high school.
Another mission trip?
Another missions trip. And I remember what I would do is I would sit down in class, and as the class, and there's about 30 or 40 kids that would enter, very well dressed. Some of them were really poor, but they would enter. And what you would find, 99% of them were shy, and they would walk in, but there was always that one that was rowdy, that always put on a show for the other students. And I'd sit back and I wouldn't say one word.
That would have been me.
Yeah, 100%. So what I did in every class, I would pinpoint this one student. There was always one student.
Yep.
And he would make everyone laugh. And I would sit down all quiet. They'd look at me and I wouldn't say one word.
Yep.
I didn't say hello, or I didn't say nothing. But when I was ready to make my introduction, I would always call on a volunteer.
Yeah.
And guess who that person would be?
Yeah.
That person that was rowdy.
Why?
Why? Because if I knew that I would pull him up, he was the class clown, as they would say.
Gotcha.
But if I had fun with him and I brought him out and made some kind of a joke with him or, just put him on show a bit.
Gotcha.
And the class saw that, they would warm up to it. And I did that, and you'll find it would always break the barrier, because when you're in a foreign country, to win their hearts is very difficult.
Gotcha.
They're very shy, they're very standoffish.
Can I say something else? What I've just observed from that is that that kid, he's rowdy, he's got energy, so that you can use that energy to be useful to you, or it can be disruptive. If you keep just wedging that child, if you had wedged him, he's going to be he's going to have energy. It's going to be disruptive.
And that's what I did.
You use and that's what I'm saying. You use that child that would have been disruptive, but you use his energy to benefit the class and benefit him, because he got his energy out. He got the limelight. He got whatever he needed, okay? And it wasn't disruptive to the class, because you've only got it for a short period of time.
That's right.
Whether you got them on a Sunday school, they're only there for an hour. And so you just want to, what's the quickest way, and you should know yourself, to engage these kids, get connected with them. Look, Peter, ultimately, there's so many different tactics, but ultimately the children will know whether you genuinely care. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can fake it. You can fake it for a short period of time, but if you want to really make an impact, they will know if you genuinely care. And ultimately, that's the question you have to ask yourself. You're there. You're teaching the kids. Do you genuinely care? Okay. How much thought have you put into each child? Does them coming to the knowledge, knowing the Lord, and educating them on developing them biblically and some truths of the Bible, do you value that? Personally, do you pray for each child individually, and the truth and it'll just come out. It'll come out through you. I think, you know what I mean? you can only fake it for a little bit, for a short period of time, and it's just the kids will pick up whether you're genuinely there, switched on or not. If you come in late to a class, for example, if you're disconnected, if you don't value that class, or if you're not prepared, and they pick up on that, especially when the children are younger, yeah, you can get away with it for a lot longer. But as they grow, their awareness grows. If they see you not caring, believe me, they're going to follow suit, in my opinion.
Yeah. Good point. I was just pondering while you were saying that. The thought that came to my head. Look, there's a number of things. You've got to be aware of the age bracket. You've got to be aware of what they go through in that age bracket.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you really got to be in tune with what
their needs are at that age.
their needs are at that age. For me, what's helped me is witnessing the children grow up, and I look at their age and I can see, okay, at their age, this is what they struggle with, this is what they enjoy, and so forth. If I was to just sidetrack for a bit, and I think I read this in the book, but we do it as teachers as well, is if you want to connect with children, don't be afraid to share a piece of yourself.
Gotcha.
Okay? Gotcha. Don't be afraid to reveal something personal to them.
Become
Whether
vulnerable.
be vulnerable in front of them.
Gotcha.
Let them know that you're not this staunch figure.
Gotcha.
You know, I've had people now, let's be honest, did we grow up with a solid Christian upbringing?
No.
No, we didn't. Not like
The
our
values
children.
were there.
The values were there, but
Christian values were there.
But we didn't grow up.
Gotcha. I hear what you're saying.
You know, in that environment. So I can share with my class, you know, portions of who I was, because there's been moments where I've done that an individual has said to me, "You did that?"
Gotcha.
And I'm like, well, why does that surprise you? Oh, because you're this in church, you're that in church, blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
I think, please don't ever look at somebody in a high light.
Gotcha.
Because if you look at somebody in a high light, that's your first mistake. And so if you can present yourself vulnerable and show them that, you know what, this is how you've grown in the Lord, when you teach, it comes out that they can see that you're real.
Gotcha.
Because you don't want to be one of these teachers that just tell them what they need to hear.
Gotcha.
You've got to be able to go in a bit deeper and tackle some of those harder issues.
Yeah, I'm with you. Listen, let me ask you this question. You know, when you were at school, for example, was there a teacher that stood out to you when you were at school that you remember this teacher just being that teacher that you love? Was there a teacher was there someone like that you
I'll be quite
not
honest.
so much loved, but you know what I'm saying?
If I was to think back, there's nobody that jumps into my mind.
Okay.
But there's one teacher that made a comment
Yeah.
that was being real about it. That was shocked that he made.
Yeah.
But because he revealed a personal thing, I never forgotten that. I'm not going to reveal it.
Sure.
But it was a personal comment that he made that I thought, wow, that 20 years, over 20 years, 25 years later, I can still remember. And that's probably one of the very few things that I've actually remembered a teacher saying. It wasn't even educational, but it was a life lesson.
I got you.
And that's what I mean. If you can be real and be vulnerable a bit and just express, don't be afraid to show your weaknesses. The students will receive that and that they will relate to it because they all struggle with the weakness. So I think we need to be real with our students. Do not take for granted that they're just children. They understand. I've taught young teenagers that I'm thinking, wow, look what's going through their mind. And we take it for granted and we want to, you know, hold a stick of authority and say, this is the way it is and blah, blah. No. Their level.
Gotcha.
Understand who you're teaching and go in at that level.
Gotcha.
Work out what is it. For example, a teenager. What is it for a teenager? It's social media. Don't be afraid to speak about it. Don't be afraid to tell them, well, this is what it causes. Don't be afraid to talk about depression. Don't be afraid to talk about peer pressure and the social issues that they're experiencing at that time. It is okay to do that if you know how to come in at their level. Does that make sense?
100% that makes sense. You know, and ultimately, always at the forefront, especially in Sunday school. Talk to them about so many areas that they need to get spoken about, but ultimately, what are we here for? We're here to impart the truths from the Word of God. So how can God get you out of that circumstance? What are the truths of the Word of God? So I think personally, don't just stay down in that area, but impart truths of the Word of God, and just follow your text that you're reading, that you've given all the classes.
Can I just share another thing? Just
What's
a one-liner that I've highlighted in the book.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's the teacher's part.
Oh, okay.
That's the next chapter, man. Why are you skipping? Come on, you're skipping. We're still at the introduction, mate.
Have I gone too far?
You're skipping. What's
A
that?
passion to communicate? That
What
is
is that?
introduction.
Oh, that's
isn't it?
introduction. Go. Sorry,
I-
man. Go.
There's a lot of one-liners. I like one-liners. If I can write a book of one-liners
Yeah.
and keep it about 3 pages long, that'd be the best book ever, Bob.
I love it. Go. But I think what page are you on there?
On page 21.
Yeah, but you skip. That's the law of a teacher.
So where are we at?
We're still at introduction.
Okay, well let's stick with
But wait,
introduction.
1 second.
Okay,
No, we're finished with the introduction now.
are we finished?
What? Yeah, introduction is done. What was the introduction? Genuine connection.
Connection. Learning
Genuine-
how to connect.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. That's the biggest thing.
Building a bond. Before we can move anywhere, we've got to build a bond, genuine connection. Introduction. This guy has spoken about, a way in which he played marbles, you did the arm wrestle. I might ask some personal questions and what do you have for breakfast and things like that. Whatever it is that you find, depending on the children, it might change. Every year, children might change. Basically, before we can move on, connect.
Can I share something with you?
Of course, Peter.
I want to share
Can I
this.
shove Ahu first?
Drink.
Tell me. Hey, 1 second before you go. Does it say Bob right there, man?
Bob, can I have a piece of Bob? I just want a piece of Bob.
Man, I'll give you a piece of me, Peter.
I want a piece of
You
Bob.
want to have a piece? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. I want to share something with you. I don't know how this could be taken, but I'll say this. However anyone might perceive what I'm about to say,
What?
I'm always accountable to God, first and foremost.
Sure, of course.
I've sometimes gauged by what parents have told me in regards to issues that may be having in regards to some children, without going into too much detail. And I, knowing certain things as a teacher,
Yeah.
would sometimes implement what I know through my teaching.
Gotcha.
If I know there's a particular student
Yeah. You're struggling in certain
who's
areas.
struggling, I would never in my right mind pinpoint that student.
Lovely.
Never. Would never ever do that. I would rather be shocked before I would do that.
You probably
Because
lose a
I'm
child by doing that.
I would 100% you'd lose a child. But what I would do is, as I'm giving an illustration, or
Especially
as I'm
if it's in front of
preparing
a
the
class,
scriptures,
in front of others.
Exactly. I won't even eyeball that child.
Gotcha.
I would look in a completely opposite direction, and indirectly, I wouldn't go really hard into making it obvious, but I would.
But you address the
I
topic.
would address the topic.
Yeah. Second hand, and it'll get to him without pinpointing them out.
Yeah. So
Okay,
when they
so
leave that class, guess what?
you've dropped some knowledge and nuggets.
Uncle Pete has just spoken about an issue that I'm struggling with, and I'm praying that they're going to learn from it. Because if they're not going to learn from, what's the purpose of teaching? If me as a teacher, I can't address certain issues, why are we teaching them? They need to hear. We need to be able to go a little bit deeper into situations for them to learn. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the introduction.